Happy Freaky Friday. Spring break is almost over, and that, to me, is cause for celebration. That either means that I'm getting too old or that I'm crazy or maybe both, but it means that Ohio State will be back for practice in a couple days. That is Bill Landis. He's back on the podcast daily. That's Jeremy Birmingham. He's been here. I'm Austin Ward. And as promised, we're going to continue on with some updated and abbreviated in some ways, because we've only seen 2 practices, defensive stonks. Bill, you did miss the offensive version. So if you would like to throw out a couple selections that you're investing in right now, feel free to do so to kick us off.
For the offensive side?
Yeah.
I guess I will be forthright with you both. I didn't watch the episode. Normally when I'm not on, I watch them, but I was otherwise occupied. I didn't have a chance to watch.
Well, you can't take Luke Montgomery, Jeremiah Smith, Julian saying.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
Who else would we talk about?
Brandon Ennis,
and
Will Kazmarek.
Wow.
But he's also lying a little bit, because we both took Luke Montgomery. So I needed to get some.
The reason there's no stock left.
I had to get it because you both already had a lot of it from last year, and I was Montgomery-less, and I had to get in the game.
I don't know who to pick. If I need to pick somebody different from what y'all two pick, man, because I like Luke Montgomery was where my mind went first, and then like Burn was listing off players, like, oh, I'll do Will Kazmarek, and then that was the last one he said. So, a guy who wasn't picked.
You don't have to do that.
No, yeah. I know, but I like to throw out some other names. Anybody say Carnell Tate?
Nope.
Okay, I'll go Carnell Tate. I think Carnell Tate is like on, and I know everyone is super interested to see what Jeremiah Smith does this year, as am I. Emeka Egbuka is back and should be one of the best wide receivers in the country. Like Carnell Tate, I think is about to become a household name this year. Like I think he is on the same path as Emeka and Marvin as sophomores to like really break out, become a player that everybody knows about. And it's a little interesting to me that he doesn't get talked about a ton. And I don't know, is that more because of like the combination of Emeka and Jeremiah, and mostly Jeremiah probably, or because maybe it's Ohio State and people just sort of take it for granted now that second-year receivers who have played the way that Carnell Tate played last year and the amount of snaps that he played last year are just like destined to break out in that way. So it's not worth talking about, but I still kind of think it is. So I'll definitely buy some Carnell Tate stock, which I feel like I'm able to buy pretty low at the moment, which is insane to me. And I'm not saying like Ohio State fans are, dismissing the potential impact of Carnell Tate. He just doesn't seem to have a ton of buzz at the moment. And I believe that he should, because I think that he has the potential to, like I said, be, like a top 15 receiver in all of college football next year. And I will certainly scoop up all available opportunity to invest in that young man's future, because I think he's going to be a great one.
Do you think that the reason he hasn't been talked about as much is because this offseason has been so heavily focused on like the addition of Quinshon Judkins and what that means for the running game, the inconsistency, and now question marks at quarterback, the changing all the offensive coordinator? Like, I think there's a lot of reasons that the passing game in general isn't being talked about. And Carnell is probably the like single biggest like recipient of not getting the noise he should because of that. So I would think it has something to do with that. But plus, like, as you said, like people kind of are bored of Ohio State receivers, I think, and they're like, next one up. But like,
I like watching them.
I think it might be because we didn't really know the nature of and the severity of the injury in the middle of last season. And so it's like, wow, we talked a lot about how impressive he was early on and the impact he could have. And Marvin's talking him up about being ahead of schedule. And then it didn't really happen in the season the way I think maybe people expected or projected, or even I thought that he might. And then you're just like, okay, well, didn't happen in year one. Maybe some of that was overblown with the hype. I bet by the time that Student Appreciation Day rolls around, that hype is going to be right back at the same level. So I think Bill is probably right to scoop up some of the dip, because once we get another look at him in pads again, I bet that things go soaring once again with his stock value.
Yeah,
and it feels like he's going to have like a 3 touchdown spring game where we're going to be like, oh yeah, that's right.
I was just gonna say, like, I think also what didn't happen in his freshman year is like Chris Olave had a couple really big moments as a freshman. Garrett Wilson had a couple moments where you're like, okay, that's eye opening what he did, like the catch against Clemson in the 2019 Fiesta Bowl. You have what Emeka Ibuka did and Marvin Harrison did in the Rose Bowl at the end of 2021. Like they had those big moments at the end of their freshman year that sort of opened people's eyes to, okay, this is coming. And Carnell Tate did not have that. The Buckeyes, I think, completed 3 passes in the Cotton Bowl. So like, I don't think anyone was walking out of that season going, oh, this is going to be super exciting next year as far as the passing game goes.
I think we all would have liked to see a lot more of Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis in that game potentially, but we did not. So we'll just have to wait until we get a couple scrimmages this spring or the spring game to cap it all off. All right. Defense. Bill, you have the honors. You get to go first.
I appreciate that. When you guys did this for the offense, how much were you? Is it all about this year, or were you playing any long games?
I picked Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin, so.
Well, Jeremiah Smith is definitely this year. Julian Sayin.
Berm's strategy, Berm's strategy is primarily long-term investments, and I, a simpleton, am looking for short-term flips.
Yeah, you're the smart one, I think. I think that's the way to go. All right. You know, I'm not gonna take my own advice here. I'm gonna go more of a long-term play. Can I get some Marvell restock, please?
Ooh.
Yeah, I would like some Marvell restock. And mostly because I knew Berm was gonna buy some. So I'd like to get it before he can. The kid's a freak, man. Like I don't know what they're gonna do with him this year. Jim Knowles said the thing that sort of feels like the kiss of death anymore, which is like we're going to find something to do for him where he doesn't have to think and he can just go play, which just means like he's not going to play any linebacker snaps when they're up 50-0 and I'm going to be frustrated by it. But I do think that he'll be pretty important on special teams. And I'll be hopeful at least that they find something for him to do with that skill set. I'm not necessarily anticipating him pushing for like meaningful linebacker snaps this year, but I do think that he is a potential starter at linebacker next year, depending on what Sonny Styles decides he wants to do after this year. Like CJ Hicks could also be draft eligible after this year. Like it is a position that if everything goes really well, could turn over rather dramatically after this season, which would put Arvell Reese in a really nice spot to kind of step up in his third year in the program. But I kind of feel like he's ready to do something now if they're willing to find the opportunity for him to do so. So like this time of year, it's easy to get enamored with guys like Arvell Reese, just like, the height, weight, speed athletes that sort of jump out at you when you're watching practice, but, that's okay. I'm comfortable in those waters because I do think eventually something's going to happen for a guy like that, even if it's not immediate. I think he's still going to be a star on this defense someday.
Arvell had a really good first quarter of the year on special teams last year before he knocked himself out and never got to play again because he hit a guy too hard. So he's definitely
being too good at special teams. Unfortunately,
he was too good. He was really, really special on the teams. You know what? You know who is going to play a lot at linebacker this year? Sonny Styles. So I'm going to take the Apple stock here, the blue chip, and say
it's already too expensive. You can't have it.
I've got a lot left over from previous investments. And Sonny Styles as a full-time linebacker is going to be a problem for the Big Ten and for teams even at the next level because he's going to be a really good linebacker in the NFL as well. So this spring is going to be interesting just to watch him figure it out. But once that understanding is there and once he really grasps what the defense needs from him as a linebacker full-time, he's going to be impossible to get off the field. And I know we've talked a lot already this spring about the 3 linebacker sets and how do you figure out a way to play CJ Hicks and Cody Simon and Jordan Hancock and Sonny Styles. I don't think it really matters. I know that Sonny Styles needs to be on the field, and I'm confident that he will prove to people that he belongs on the field all the time. What I'm most excited for is that when Sonny's closer to the line of scrimmage, I think the sacks, the strip fumbles, the hitting a running back at the line of scrimmage and blowing up a play, like those are the things he did sparingly when he got a chance to move up into the box last year. He's going to do that a lot, and I think people are going to be talking about Sonny Styles a lot nationally. We talk about him too much probably on our platforms because we cover Ohio State, and that's what we have the opportunity to do. And I don't think people really know his name nationally, but like Carnell Tate, Sonny's going to be widely discussed this spring and summer and fall.
Bill, I can't believe you didn't just take Sonny Styles first.
I thought I had all of it. I didn't know there was any available.
There's one share left, and
he got the one. Congratulations!
Got the one. He paid up to get it.
If you could get one share of Apple right now at like a reasonable price, I mean, you're set for a while.
Yeah,
you're set for a while.
Maybe not. One? I mean, it's. I live in a world where money is extremely fungible, and one share of Apple stock to me, I can stretch for 1,000 years. I'm an expert investor. Follow me for stock tips.
You know what fungible means?
Yes, I know what fungible means.
I don't. So that's why I was asking you. I don't know what it means. I just know something can be fungible or non-fungible, but I don't know what it actually means.
Look it up, Bill, while Austin's talking about Jermaine Mathews.
How dare you, sir? You're trying to get me to take Jermaine Mathews first so that I don't take both Hero Canoe and Caden McDonald, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. I was gonna cheat and say Ohio State's defensive tackles are about to be the best group in the country and most game wrecking and dynamic, and both in terms of stopping the run and potentially racking up some sacks. I already have a ton of Hero Canoe investment, so I'll add a little bit to that. And anyone who's paid attention to snap judgments or any of the practice reports or anything in the first 2 weeks of camp or the last 2 months of the season know that I've been hearing and seeing a lot of impressive stuff from Caden McDonald. So I want to have a lot of that to go along with my Jermaine Mathews portfolio. You almost can't go wrong anywhere on the defense. I thought that that's like kind of the fun of this one. They're so good and there's so much depth, but I really think out of that group, Caden McDonald is going to make the biggest leap from like handful of snaps to major impactful player. And if that could easily be a 4-man rotation in there at defensive tackle that I would actually be in favor of, which I will throw my hand up and admit that's probably what needs to happen.
Berm, were you serious when you said that if Caden McDonald was 2 inches taller, he'd be at Georgia? Like, is that really why he's not there?
100%.
That's crazy. He's going to be so good, man.
100%. Georgia recruits only 6'5", 350-pound defensive tackles, and
it's not a bad strategy, but
no, I mean, still, well, he was coming out of high school like 6'2" and 290 pounds, and just wasn't physically imposing enough to really fit their style.
I mean, how many high school you're competing against high-level athletes in Georgia? What did he have? 40 sacks? How many does he have to get for Georgia to want him? Like that's just defies belief for me.
That's okay. It worked out.
I mean, it worked out for Ohio State.
Yeah, it's great for Ohio State. It's just wild that have a little flexibility, right?
It hasn't worked out yet, but again, that's the problem. Like in the state of Georgia, you have 400 Division I players every single year. You just can't take them all if you want to have a national presence as well. So you have to pick and choose. And Ohio State's done a nice job of being involved down there and finding guys like Caden to come up. I mean, you look at Gwinnett County, you got Jordan Hancock, Caden McDonald. Caleb Downs. Like, it's pretty good on the Ohio State defense.
All right, let's look at it from this perspective, because we all are, I think, very impressed with Jermaine Mathews.
Mm-hmm.
How's that going to work? Like, is it just going to be one of those vintage 3-man rotations and the amount of reps are all going to be the same? Do you think there's a chance that he, in the pecking order, supplants Davison Igbinosun at some point? Like, how's this going to work out, you think? After 2 practices, not in pads.
Yeah, well, it's also based off last year too, right? So I think I don't know that he's like on the verge of replacing Davison Igbinosun. I don't know. I guess I could see the two of them like rotating. Because I don't think you take Denzel Burke out of the game, right? I don't know. They've taken first round corners off the field before. I guess the idea is if you have three first round corners, you might as well treat them all equally. So I could see more of a rotation there this year. Maybe not an equal one. Maybe something like Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun getting like 70% of the snaps, and Jermaine Mathews getting 30. But I'm talking like the meaningful snaps, not total snaps over the course of the season. Because I do think he's going to force his way onto the field. And And he could be also maybe the next guy on to the field when Jim Knowles goes to those 6 DB looks, which he does sparingly. He's done does it probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 times in the 2 years that he's been here. So I could see Jermaine Mathews finding a role there as well, because he is playing in the slot a little bit from what I could tell. It seems like everyone's kind of getting a shot to show whether or not they can play the nickel position. So maybe I shouldn't put too much into seeing him take a couple reps there on the first day of spring practice. But if he's at least getting a look there and shows himself capable, I think that's a pathway to the field too when they're playing in those expanded defensive back packages. But I do think he's going to be like a quasi starter for the defense this year. I don't think he's only going to be relegated to some snaps at the end of games and kind of the next guy up if someone gets hurt.
He proved it last year in big moments against Penn State. I mean, went full games when Denzel Burke couldn't play. I think that whatever the rotation is, you have to consider him like we used to consider the third cornerback as a starter. I mean, but ultimately, how does it work? It works like this. It works like Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, Iowa, Oregon. That's obviously a team that will throw the ball a little bit, but then you get Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana before Michigan. Like, there's going to be an opportunity for a lot of guys on defense to play a lot of reps this year, and he's earned it more than any other player that is waiting for his turn. So whatever the rotation is, whether it's inside, outside, he's going to play a lot of reps. And I think if you can cut down on the reps you need from Denzel Burke, or cut down on the reps from Davison Igbinosun, or even Jordan Hancock, like he's putting himself in the position where he can play all three of those spots. And I don't know that any of the other guys in that rotation or in that room can. So like Jermaine's going to play a lot. I mean, he's going to be very important.
Yeah, I'm not ruling out that Jermaine Mathews could be second in that list. And Bill, you and I talked in the cornerback preview about who was the most intriguing one to watch, and I said Davison Igbinosun, and I prefaced all of it by talking about the rare, length that he brings to that position. We love the physicality that we've seen from him on the field. Like, he is a good player. He got caught with a few penalties more than anybody else on the defense last year. And that's, I only bring that up to say that could crack the door. Like, if that becomes a lingering concern, playing too much on the edge, I don't know if Jermaine Mathews will have that problem or not have that problem. Who knows? Like, we'd have to see that. What we saw last year from him when he got on the field was so impressive for a young corner that, like, I think that there could be a legitimate competition between those two for playing time. But at the same time, I think it's probably more likely than not that the competition, quote unquote, is resolved by all three of them playing.
For whatever it's worth, and people probably are aware of this, Jermaine Mathews had the best Pro Football Focus coverage grade on the defense last year, better than Denzel Burke and significantly better than Davison Igbinosun. Now it's on a much smaller sample size, but it's on a decent sample size. It's not only garbage time reps in there, as Berm said. So like there's enough there, I think, to back you up, Austin. If you're someone who thinks that Jermaine Mathews might actually be second on this team in corner snaps this year, I wouldn't push back against that too strongly. The thing about Davison is, like, he's such a good tackler. So like I don't know Jermaine, and it's not that Jermaine has shown himself to be a bad tackler. Just like that, it's nice to kind of have that security blanket out there. I think if you're Jim Knowles, to like know that Davison is maybe the best tackler on the defense, or at least he was last year. But I think they're going to push each other a lot. Like it'll be good for both of them. Like, I think this spring, the two of them kind of going at it to see who might play the second most snaps behind Denzel could be pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I don't mean it as a slight or to suggest that Ohio State would be concerned in any way about relying on Davison Igbinosun for the full season. I mean it much more as a compliment and a higher expectations for what Jermaine Mathews can become. And if they use all three of them or more, hey, all the better for Ohio State. All right. That's the Jermaine Mathews portion of the Stock Watch, where we all are invested. Who else you got left, Bill?
I'll stay in the cornerback room. I'll go with Lorenzo Styles. Berm and I had a conversation many podcast dailies ago. I think, Austin, when you were maybe on vacation, just like kind of throwing out guys that we hadn't talked much about going into spring practice. And I had mentioned Lorenzo Styles at that time, sometime I think in February, as a potential, maybe it was January, as a potential fit down the road as a nickel. And listening to Jim Knowles talk about him the other day, like it kind of seems like they're viewing him in a similar light, and maybe it'll end up that he gets like the most of the second team nickel reps this spring, just to kind of see what that looks like. And I find him very intriguing in that spot, just because he's a little bit bigger. You like watch his high school highlights; he's pretty physical at cornerback. He's really good with the ball in his hands if he were to make an interception, obviously. But I think the combination of him potentially being like the heir apparent to Jordan Hancock, and also the potential of him impacting the team on special teams, including as a returner, apparently, this year, leads me to believe that he could have a little bit of bigger role over the next couple of years, maybe that I would have anticipated, last June. So I'll buy some of that stock. I don't know that I'd like put a whole lot into it, because there's a lot of really good players in the defensive back room, both safety and cornerback. It's going to be really competitive. So I don't mean to overstate that it's like clear he's definitely going to have a role, but it does seem like he's making a little bit of a move, and I'd like to ride that wave a little bit if I could.
It's got to be the punt returner.
Yeah. If it's not going to be a receiver, I think it should be.
I already told you Brandon Innes is going to be the punt returner. I said that on Wednesday's podcast daily. I've put the bold P in. It's done. It's a done deal, bud. Sorry, I'm not here to pee in your cornflakes, but it's going to be Brandon Innes. So,
what
good
are you
for
here
me
for if you're not here for that?
Good for me that I don't eat cornflakes.
I'm also not here to put down players like Austin is. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and throw Davis Nelson under the bus. So I'm going to be very, very candid in my opinion here. The defensive tackle we're not talking about that we need to talk about is Jason Moore. Now, maybe that's not this year necessarily, but Jason Moore up to now like 6'6", 308 pounds, or like looks kind of different. And I really think that, for a player that was a top 40, top 50 player coming out of high school, hurt all of his freshman season, like the longer it takes sometimes for the defensive linemen, the better I think they're going to be. Like I sometimes am under the impression like the guys who play too early, especially in the middle, don't ever really get better. And I want to see what Jason Moore is going to be with a full-time commitment to being defensive tackle, and what we've seen from the transformation body-wise, and what there's just a buzz about him a little bit from guys in the program is starting to pick up. And I think Jason Moore is a player that, if you're talking about nobody's purchased any of the stock previously, like that's a guy who there's a lot of it available, and I'm going to put some in the old back pocket right now because he looks like different.
I thought you already did that last summer.
I don't remember that. You can't prove it.
We can't be held to the things we say when we're podcasting as much as we are.
I mean, I could do it, but I'm definitely not, because we make way too.
I dare you to find it.
No, I don't think I want to do that.
Even if I did pick him last summer,
I was giving you flowers for saying that you had already been on board.
Nobody else jumped on it, so I'm just going to pick up Moore if that's the case. Moore.
Yeah, I got it.
Get it? Because his last name is Moore.
Yeah. These cornflakes are delicious. Oh boy, just awesome. I can't believe that it's just sitting right here for me to get the full complement of Caleb Downs stock. You guys just aren't.
That is.
We're going to talk about Apple. Come on, man.
That is owned by everyone all over the country.
What? I've only seen this guy twice in a Ohio State uniform, and I like what I see. So I'm going out on a bold limb here, and I'm just going to scoop up everything that I see. I think he's a good athlete, guys. I think he can tackle. I think he can cover. I really like his potential as maybe being a starting safety for this team. It's only 2 practices, but
we'll see.
I'm going to take some Caleb Downs and see what happens. I'm just going to roll the dice.
Could play offense too.
He shouldn't do that.
If you wanted to be really bold, let's talk about the fact that the most important safety on this team is still Lathan Ransom. Okay. Having Lathan Ransom back this year is more valuable for Ohio State than adding Caleb Downs. That's how I feel.
I would disagree with that, but
I don't know that is the case.
That's how I feel. If you only had one of them, right? Is the addition of Caleb Downs like Lathan Ransom makes Caleb Downs' addition significantly better, and obviously Caleb Downs makes Lathan Ransom that much better as well. But I'm saying if you had Lathan Ransom and Malik Hartford or Caleb Downs and
Sonny Styles.
okay, see, no, but now you're playing a whole different game, man. That's not even.
I'm playing your game. You said if you could only have one, I would take Caleb Downs.
Okay.
And I love Lathan Ransom. I agree with you that he's very important.
I think Lathan's importance is being lost in the shuffle here of everything.
That's probably fair. I agree with that.
I will agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
Yes.
But to say that one of them,
chalk it up, America.
But you then the more you started talking, and it only took me 5 words for you to realize the error of your ways. You know that you went a little too far down that road. I
forgot that we could have just kept Sonny Styles at safety in this hypothetical scenario. I'm not going to lie about that. I forgot. I have a forgetful brain.
He's been there for 2 practices, and it's now he's just a linebacker.
Yeah,
I love it.
All he's ever going to be for me.
All right. Well, that seems like a fun place to end it. Spring break is coming to an end. Hope you have a fantastic weekend and a merry St. Patrick's Day on Sunday. Yeah, bro.
I have a thought. Do you guys think that it's unfortunate that the Tony Alford thing happened on Wednesday and not today, Friday, the 15th of March?
The Ides?
Yes, because I wrote a 3,000-word story that no one cared about because Tony Alford left for Michigan like 3 hours after it got posted.
Had it been planned out a little bit better and happening on the Ides of March would have been like a really deft maneuver.
Poetic even. Yep.
Imagine all the headlines. A2, Brute, like it would have been all over the place.
How many people that cover college football do you think even know what the Ides of March are?
I hope a lot. I mean, it's a fairly common thing, right?
I think people know that it's a saying, but don't know like where it comes from or what it actually means.
No.
I don't think
they're supposed to tweet it on March 15th.
I hope they do.
Other than you, I'm not sure that anybody would have gone to the Et tu Brutus a headline.
Bill, did you look up the word fungible?
I did, and then I closed the window. But I did learn that lumber is fungible, so we have that going for us.
That's good. Berm bringing the lumber on a Freaky Friday episode of the Podcast Daily. We will, of course, be back on Monday as Ohio State gets ready to get for week 2. I don't know, 3A. I don't know what to call it. They're just going to be back. Practice number 3 is on Tuesday. We're looking forward to getting back out there and having more coverage on the Buckeyes and hearing from Ryan Day about what's going to happen with the running back room and a little bit, obviously, state of transition. So we'll have that. Again, have a great weekend. For Bill and Berm, I'm Austin. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.